Hello and welcome to Sage's Table Talks. I'm Sage, this is my tabletop, and I'm going to talk to you about tabletop role-playing games. You have to excuse, the lack of back there and kind of, we are currently in the process of getting ready for a move, so a lot of the stuff we don't just use daily is starting to get put in boxes. So, our whiteboard back there got put in a box. And a bunch of our books got put in a box, which is why I don't have the book on hand that I will be discussing today, which is Pathfinder First Edition. Don't worry, I have a lot of it memorized. We played so much Pathfinder 1E. Pathfinder 1E and Dungeons & Dragons 3rd Edition is the system that my group probably has played more than any other group. Or, not more than any other group. Honestly, we might have played it more than just about any other group. We played it for a long time. But it's the one that our group has probably played more than any other game. Even more than Scion, which I've talked about a lot on this channel. I don't have as many fun stories about Pathfinder, and we'll start kind of getting into why here later, but yeah, so, and it's sad I don't have any of the books in front of me. They're put in a box somewhere. Because I would adore, and just go look it up, adore to show you the absolute just awful art. I hate the artwork in the Pathfinder books. I'll just start there. So, all the artwork in these Pathfinder games is so messy and busy and over-designed. Like, everyone's got to have 4-foot spikes. My favorite. Man, I wish I had the book on hand to show this. The monk in the book is wearing, no joke, 4 different belts. Like, what the fuck does he need 4 different belts for? Yeah, and that is exactly indicative of what I was talking about the artwork is. They have, like I said, the monk has 4 different belts. Should he have a girdle? Should he have, a traditional karate belt? Should he have, a kung fu style sash? Should he have, a belt that would hold his pants up? And the answer is, just do it all. Who the fuck cares? Whatever. Well, for those of you who don't know the history of what Path, I'm not going to bore you with all of it. But basically what happened was 3rd edition got super popular in the early 2000s. In 2000, Wizards of the... Yeah, I don't even have my hat today. So that shows you how kind of busy this weekend's been. Can't tell if that's something in my hair or... No, I think it's just the light reflecting off my hair. Hair's starting to go gray, so it might be some reflection going on. Because I'm an old man. I mean, after all, I played 3rd edition when 3rd edition first came out. Tells you how old that I am. Anyway, sorry, I got distracted. But, so Dungeons & Dragons 3rd edition came out. It was super popular. They released 3.5, which just updated some stuff. One of the big things it did was it gave the ranger something more than first level, and also it gave the wizard a bunch of extra spells he didn't need. And then when 3.0 was kind of finished its run, once Wizard of the Coast realized that it had reached the end of its market viability, they released the Dungeons & Dragons 4th edition. Now, Dungeons & Dragons 4th edition was wildly unpopular. You can go back and see my lukewarm defense of D&D 4th edition video, and I kind of talk about that a little bit. So this game company Payazo took the fact that Dungeons & Dragons 3rd edition was in the open gaming license, and they released their own version of blackjack and hookers, and you know what, just forget the blackjack and the hookers. You know what? Forget the whole thing. They didn't forget the whole thing. They released what's called Pathfinder 1st edition, which everyone called Dungeons & Dragons 7.5 or 3.75 because it was just an updated version of 3rd edition. And it did some things that we actually see in a lot of modern design kind of in that space. One of the big things it did was it didn't completely, but they tried to get rid of a lot of the dead levels. So in third edition, the other things about third edition was when you played third edition, you played one level in ranger, and then you either dipped into fighter or barbarian, and it's because in third edition at first level ranger you got your 2-weapon fighting abilities, so you got basically about 2 feats for free. Favorite enemy, who gives a fuck about favorite enemy? And then you dipped into fighter, so you could take those 2-weapon fighting feats and move into things like power attack and weapon specialization and all that garbage. And then, sorry guys. Or the barbarian, which gave you like your rages, your damage reductions, things like that. And yeah, you didn't get to level 20 of either of those classes, but it didn't really matter. Fighters didn't get anything at level 20 anyway. I probably need to slow down my words. I'm probably starting to squish my words together, but so Pathfinder gave the Rangers some extra stuff to do. They gave them some stuff that was kind of cool, like favored terrains. The Rangers, a big thing has always been their favorite enemy. They pick an enemy type like goblinoids or dragons or something of that nature, and then they get some advantages to that. A bonus to both accuracy and damage. And the favorite terrain kind of gave them also the bonuses to accuracy, damage, I think initiative, which was kind of cool if they're fighting on their favorite terrain. I actually really like that idea. It wasn't implemented perfectly, but I thought it was a cool idea, and it's something that modern Rangers could implement if they wanted to, but they won't because Dungeons and Dragons design fucking hate Rangers for some reason. For some reason, they've hated Rangers since like 2nd edition. This refused to fix the problems with them. But they gave them, a couple extra combat feats, things like that. They still haven't fixed the Ranger, but it was nice to them to go in that order. The big thing they did, and you'll recognize this if you've played 5th edition, was they're the ones that gave Wizard School something more than an additional spell. So in 3rd edition, if you specialize, so let's say I specialize in Diviner, and then I choose Illusionist and Necromancy as my restricted schools, I could cast 1 additional divination spell per day, but I couldn't cast illusion and necromancy. You picked in 3rd edition. In 2nd edition, it just depended on what school you picked, determined what was restricted for you. So if you picked, let's say, Evoker, you just straight up didn't get like Abjurist or we'll say Conjure. I don't know if this is true, but you didn't get a say in the matter. Now you got a say in the matter. And in Pathfinder, those schools weren't forbidden, they were just restricted. It cost 2 spell slots to cast those spells, but also your choice of school did something. Like if you picked Evoker, you got an energy bolt so many times a day based on it was your intelligence. I believe it was your intelligence modifier. So like you got to use an energy bolt a number of times a day. You go to your intelligence modifier. If you picked Abjurist, you got a shield that resisted certain damage types. The one I remember was Divine, and I always played Diviners. I like Diviners. I always liked Divination Magic. But you would get a bonus to your initiative equal to half your level. So you got an initiative, which was really cool. You also got the ability to like have the text scrying on you at all times eventually, which actually did come up a couple of times in the longest Pathfinder 1E campaign we ran. So that's kind of cool. They also did something with humans that we've actually seen once again filter on from later games, which was humans just got a straight floating stat boost, +2 to any one stat they wanted, which was really cool. But yeah, and Pathfinder had a lot of extra feats and a lot of extra spells. And then they released a bunch of supplement books. And this destroyed their game. I get why companies release supplemental books with new player options, because money, because, you know, I hate to say it, but capitalism's fault. These companies want to keep making crazy amounts of money, and they don't really know other ways to monetize their tabletop role-playing game other than to release things like one of the weirdest classes Pathfinder first edition had was the vigilante class. Oh my gosh, the vigilante class at core was it had the ability to do things like in a turn, as like for a full round action, you could swap out of your normal identity and put on a mask and a costume, and now all of a sudden you have a new identity. And they have like grappling hooks and smoke bombs, and they could throw like boomerangs, and they gained like bonuses to like detecting lies and the fun. Like you made Batman, which fine, I guess it's kind of a cool idea. And then the vigilante class also had some subclasses, archetypes, what they Pathfinder when he called them, and I will get into those here in a minute, because oh boy, was that a problem. But one let you, when you do your transformation, like create a sparkling rainbow and big special effect around you. And then they had like magical attacks when they did, like, when instead of throwing a boomerang, they could fire a magical beam, and you turned your character into Sailor Moon. And this was late in Pathfinder's run, and I appreciate, in a way, the absolute stupidity of what they did. They released an alchemist archetype that let you gain, like, turn yourself into a giant, super strong mutant when you got, like, emotional. I mean, yeah, they were just, like, really just skirting the line of Mutants and Masterminds or Face Rip there, but, you know, it is what it is. So, when they released, because in Dungeons & Dragons 3rd Edition, they released constant books with new classes, and specifically new prestige classes, because in 3rd edition, when you multi-classed, you had every class had a favored what would you call it? Favorite class. And this didn't count for this multi-class rule, which was, I get why nobody wanted to use it, but now seeing how 5th edition and Pathfinder 1st edition and Pathfinder 2nd edition runs, I understand why they put it in the game now. So how it worked was, let's say I had 5 ranks in Barbarian. If I was a half-orc, my favorite class is Barbarian. So I decide to dip into 1 level in Ranger. Well, that's fine. But let's say instead I had 5 levels in Barbarian and I was playing a Dwarf. Dwarf's favorite class was, I believe, Fighter. So I have 5 levels in Barbarian, and now I decide to dip into Ranger. Well, because they were more than 1 level apart, until I gain levels in Ranger, until I'm 1 level away, so until I get 4 levels in Ranger, I suffer an experience penalty. Which is why, if you look at 3rd edition, everything's a prestige class, and like a lot of them are prestige classes that you can get into at level 3. And that's just so that it gets around this weird multi-classing. I had a player, and this was a 3rd edition game, and he was playing this, specifically an Eberron game, and he was playing this character, a human character. Humans pick their favorite class. That was one of the advantages of humans. So whatever class you wanted to be your favorite class was your favorite class. So he had this weird character that had like 2 core classes and like 3 or 4 Because we got pretty far into this campaign. We were pretty high level in this Eberron campaign by the time Pathfinder 1E came out, and our friend decided to just scrap like this entire campaign that we were all really invested in. They had like one level in this class, like 3 levels in another class, 2 levels in this one prestige class, a level dip in this prestige class. Was going to ride out this next, and I'm like, and he was an absolute beast, but he was also somewhat of a hot mess. He was very much a Chelsea Green here. But like, so I get why those multiclassing restrictions existed, was to stop and a lot of it was just to stop the character from taking the 1 level dip in Ranger to kind of cheat the system. Better solution would be to make the Ranger not garbage. But you know, for some reason, D&D just people who make D&D games just refuse to make the Ranger not suck. Like, there's just this absolute refusal to make him anything but the monkey option of playing tabletop role playing games. I haven't quite gotten there in 5.5, but like even in 5th edition. But anyway, I digress. So when Pathfinder came out, they changed the way that favored classes work, where instead you got an extra skill point or an extra hit point, and then they made it so that they all got like, okay, so you're human and you pick favored class as alchemist. Every time you level up, you get 1/6 of a new recipe that you know, and it's like that. This is a really stupid system, guys. And they're like, yeah, our game is not very well put together because Pathfinder is proof that listening to crybabies on the internet isn't the viable option. And this is something a lot of wrestling promotions need to understand too. That when you get people on the internet, especially kind of nerdy folk, and I'm throwing my own people kind of under the bus here, they tend to cry and scream and rage at things that aren't exactly what they want. And the truth is that they are just fucking talking out their ass. Like, because we played a lot of Pathfinder 1st edition, and looking back on it now, we shouldn't have. We should have moved to some of the other systems that have been out since that time. Tried some different things, but we were just angry, whiny nerds who were mad that they changed our Dungeons and Dragons, and we can't play, the same game we had been playing for a while, and they changed it, so now it sucks. So we played Pathfinder 1E because they didn't change. They changed it a little bit, but not enough that it was something new and scary, and we had to actually learn how to use the at-will encounter daily utility power system, which really wasn't that bad of a thing, and is basically being used in Pathfinder 2nd edition now. It has actually kind of been in use since forever. It's just now instead of slots per day, we just have it as per encounter, and it's we were just mad at 4th edition. And for us, I didn't, like I said, we did try 4th edition, and none of us actually liked 4th edition. I think that we did overly hate it, but we were also young and kind of in our angry phase. So yeah, we played a lot of Pathfinder first edition. But one of the things that drove me insane was when Pathfinder first edition came out, Paizo made a kind of this like statement. Oh yeah, I was telling you third edition. So just supplemental book. By the end of it, there were like 300 playable classes if you included the probably like maybe like 5, 6, 700 if you counted the prestige classes. So there's obviously zero balance here. I still remember this one class we found called the Divine Martyr. The Divine Martyr, which was kind of a cleric prestige class, had 10 levels because they would go anywhere from 3 to 10 levels because it was the Wild West. And there was just no fucking control, no codification, no rules or anything for how this shit worked. People just kind of did what the fuck they did. I mean, fuck, we had a magic missile mage, which was one of the stupidest fucking things ever. But the Divine Martyr had 10 levels, and at 10th level, you died. And you basically exploded in holy fire, and you became a Divine Martyr, and your character was lost, which is a fucking weird thing to put as a capstone to an ability. One of the rules is you couldn't class out of it, which is something that some of the classes had. Like, for whatever fucking reason, once you went into monk, you couldn't class out a monk unless it was a specific monk prestige class, because, you know, no one who studied karate has then went on to learn, you know, fucking HEMA. Like, that's never happened before in the entire history of the world. But like I said, it's like, oh, the amount of training and dedication it requires to be a monk, because a fighter picks up a broadsword in a weekend, fucking, and is automatically, you know, a master sword fighter, because learning how to use a fucking battle axe in war, learning how to channel your emotions as a weapon instead of being a hindrance, is something you can do on a long weekend, like, but learning how to punch someone good, that requires a lifetime of dedication and training. It was fucking stupid. But anyway, so this Divine Martyr class, I was kind of going back to. I was like, okay, I'll go 11 levels in Cleric. Then go into Divine Martyr. By the time I'm level 20, I will be a level 9 Divine Martyr, and don't have to worry about it, because the Divine Martyr, and I don't remember what all they got, but I remember being like, it was in the Miniatures Handbook, which me and my friends nicknamed the Munchkin's Handbook, because it was one of the most unbalanced fucking things I'd ever seen in my life. Like, it was crazy. And now, for those of you in the know, I'm talking about 3rd edition splat books, and I'm saying that as far as 3rd edition splat books go, the Miniatures Handbook was fucking OP and broken, so that fucking tells you something. I'll talk about Pun here in a minute. And then I kind of realized that you could just go, 4 levels of Cleric and get a Divine Martyr, because no game goes past level 12. But it didn't matter. We actually did our Eberron campaign. We were like level 14, 15 when we were playing, which is why we were so upset when our DM was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. Let's do Pathfinder 1st edition. Everybody starts at level 1, and we're all just like, but we were like invested, and like we were getting like deep into the story, and he was like, no, I hate Dungeons and Dragons now, so I'm gonna just get rid of this, and we're gonna start back. And we all built as close to characters as we could to our original characters, because we were trying real desperately hard to kind of maintain the momentum of that game. We only did about 2-3 sessions of that Pathfinder campaign, because none of us really fucking cared anymore. Because, like, imagine if you're watching a TV show, and then the last season, they replaced the class, they replaced the cast, changed the setting, changed the aesthetics. You're just not going to care about that show anymore. And then completely follow a new story where you're like, we don't want this. None of us wanted it. We wanted to finish out. This was before Pathfinder when he was released. This was at the end of or no, this wasn't because um but yeah, like at the end of Dungeons and Dragons Third Edition, before Pathfinder was released, he was like, "Oh, I'm done with wizards. I'm done with wizards. I'm done with wizards." Which, fine, as far as I know, he never picked up another wizards book again. And we're like, all right, let's finish out the campaign. Then when Pathfinder released their 3.75, we were all just like, he was like, yes, let's do this. And I was like, okay, but like, first of all, we had a bunch of psychics because the idea of psychics was like a big part. They were called the Kori, I think. They were like these psychic bug things. That was like a huge part of our campaign. Because I played a Soul Knife, my friend played a Scion, and well, we couldn't do that anymore. And the Kori were taken out of the game, and we were just like, none of us cared anymore. Man, I kind of lost my train of thought. I forgot I was even talking about, but yeah. But so with all these splats, like I said, there was like there was probably every bit of 100 some core classes plus hundreds and hundreds of prestige classes. So they came out and Pathfinder's like, look, we're not going to do this. We are going to not just dump hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of new classes on you. We're going, keep that tight. So like, okay, cool. I like that because it got to the point in third edition where as a new player, you couldn't play. Like, there was just no joining third edition now because it's like, okay, what do you want to play? Well, I want to play a character who's kind of like, like I want to play kind of like the steampunk. Okay, well, there's 13 classes you can choose from, and then when you pick on these 13, there's like these, 46 different prestige classes you should look into. And here's a list of, 412 feats that you're going to have to pick from that will kind of help guide your character. So if you want to play like a steampunk gunslinger, here's literally 500, 600, 700 things you have to look into in order to play this character. And like, you're like, okay, we'll do something a little simpler. It's like, okay, I want to play like an Arthurian knight. Okay, well, obviously you can play a fighter or a paladin, both of these things. There's a specific knight class. I actually played a knight for a while. I enjoyed it a lot. Here's a knight class. Here's like a warlord style class, if that's something you want to play. Here's a noble king class. Like, it's a little bit less combating and a little bit more, has a little bit more like social skills, but here and then here's the divine protector class. Here's the knight of the rose, the knight of the thorn, the knight of the wolf prestige classes to go into. There's a crimson knight here. If you're playing a dwarf, you can play a dwarven defender. And then like it's like, okay, so the feat you're gonna need here, you're obviously gonna need, since you're gonna be a knight, some mounted combat feats. So here's here's the list of mounted combat feats. Oh, also from this book, here's some feats about how to enchant your mount, so he's no longer a normal mount. He's and if we're gonna do that, here's a prestige class. And then like the player's gonna be like, what? Because using third edition core rules, you're like, I want to play an Arthurian knight. You're gonna be like, okay, well, you can play a fighter or a paladin. Like, if you want some magic, then you're gonna pick paladin. If you want to be kind of just more of a traditional sword and shield ride into combat, the knight's probably your best bet, or the fighter's probably your best bet. I know literally two different samurai in third edition. The one from L5R, which is fighter with less feats, better ability to enchant their weapon and more skill points. And then there's like this one that dual wields and screams at everybody. It's like you have a kiosk shout, but it just comes off as like he's running around with two swords just yelling at everybody. And it's just a really dumb visual. So yeah, literally two samurai from third edition. So Pathfinder's like, we're not going to do that anymore. And they actually didn't really release prestige classes because they really weren't popular in Pathfinder first edition. People just didn't really care about them because there wasn't the kind of weird culture about it that there was in third edition. I wonder if that part of that isn't that they got rid of favorite enemy restriction or favorite class restrictions, and let's let people multi-class. So you could be a paladin who took one level in ranger for this particular thing, who then took, let's say, 2 levels in bard to get these particular abilities, and then maybe a level in, I don't know, Inquisitor to get one of those, to get that particular ability. And there's just no restriction. Pathfinder first edition didn't really care. What we got instead were archetypes. And it led to the same problem that third edition had. Pathfinder didn't fix the problem. The thing was, they kept that propaganda, and this is the thing that really bothered me about Paizo, because they kept that propaganda machine going up until the death of Pathfinder First Edition. And this was the idea that we don't have hundreds of classes. Like, yes, you fucking do. You just call them archetypes now. And so how an archetype would work is, they're very, very similar to how the subclasses in 5th edition work, except for way worse. So in 5th edition, you're like, okay, I'm playing a fighter. Okay, so what's my subclass? Well, I'm going to be a battle master. So at level 3, 7, 11, and 14, you got this first, second, third, fourth subclass ability. So you can kind of just look at it and be like, okay, fighter, now what's my subclass? But what Pathfinder did was, I'm going to play a paladin. It's like, yes, but maybe you would like to play an Arthurian knight. Okay, well, what does that mean? That means that you give up the smite evil you get at this level, so you no longer get that particular smite evil, and instead you get a challenge. And then you get rid of this particular divine aura, and you get the ability to improve your challenge. And you get like and instead of learning this collection of spells, you learn. I'm like, okay, So now what I have to do is, instead of just learning a new class, I have to learn the paladin class, then I gotta cross-reference this other fucking book and slot out their abilities. And, like, there were hundreds and hundreds of these archetypes. So, once again, you still get to this point where, as a new player, it's like, oh, we'll just pick a core class, and that's fine. And I talked about this when I talked about this in my balance video about balancing classes, that it's not a terrible thing to have some classes stronger than other classes. It is a terrible thing when you have a character build that completely negates the use of a different character. And a lot of the archetypes just did that. It's like, aha, so it's like, okay, I'm playing a paladin. Right, well, I'm playing a Templar of the Storms, which means that I can basically do everything you can do, paladin. Those kind of neat little divine auras that are actually really kind of flavorful and cool. And they're not particularly useful, but they have, like, a lot of really cool flavor and energy behind them. I got rid of those for just pure mechanical benefit, so I'm just better than you in every way. I can do everything you can do except better. I do think that in game design, it's okay to give characters abilities that aren't useful all the time, but are, like, very, very kind of cool. And I've found those abilities useful multiple times. Like I said, we had a monk once who was on top of, like, a castle wall, because we all kind of, like, were infiltrating a wedding. And how we were all, they found out what we were doing, we kind of got thrown into the dungeon. So we were escaping, and we ended up getting separated. So we all kind of went in our own separate ways. And the idea would be, okay, we're going to scatter, and then we're going to converge on the wedding and stop it. And he ended up on top of the castle walls. And so, as the guards were chasing him into the castle walls, he jumped off and used his free fall, his the monk ability to, like, break your fall. It's like, okay, I'm gonna boom, And so he was able to like just literally jump off this castle wall into the like garden where the wedding was starting to happen without dying because he had this particular monk ability. And in Pathfinder Second Edition, a seasoned player would have picked a monk that replaced that with like the ability to like shoot lightning with their flurry of blows. And while mechanically it would have been much more useful, we would have lacked that kind of cool scene where they got to do that wall jump thing. And I think it's okay to have characters with those kind of abilities. In Pathfinder First Edition, fighters got an ability called Bravery, and it's just a static bonus to saves against fear. As useful as, say, like a fighter who would give those up for extra mobility, no, not at all. So like I said, once again, we'll call them like we'll just say hypothetically like a fencer type class. Like I said, I don't remember all the archetypes because God, who could? Probably someone out there has like an encyclopedic memory of them. But okay, you give up your braveries at levels, 4, 6, and 8, and in doing so, they didn't get braveries like that soon, but you give up these 3, and what you get is plus 10 to your movement speed, plus 2 initiative, another plus 10 to your movement speed. Yeah, you're gonna give up those braveries for those because those are just more universally useful. But having those braveries, because like I said, bravery, they give you a bonus to fear checks, things like that. So against people trying to intimidate you for demoralization, or like a beholder's ray of fear, you get just like, and by the end of the level, not an unsubstantial bonus, but it makes sense for what the fighter is. Like, this guy, the fighter is supposed to be, your archetypical hero. He's the guy who draws his blade and runs first in the battle. He's the vanguard. He's the one who rushes first. He's first encounter with the enemy. Show no fear, show no mercy. Fucking Cobra Cry. Strike first, strike fast. And so thematically, it makes sense. Mechanically, it's not going to come up that often, but when it does, it's kind of a cool thing, and it's kind of that's a really cool feeling to have this thing just kind of like, holy shit, wait, so the Spoony one, Noah Antwaller, had videos kind of similar, very similar to mine, and he was talking about having being in an Alice in Wonderland type setting with his bard character, and one of the characters was talking, and while it was talking, he's noticing that the DM was having everyone make saving throws, and Spoony realized what was going on. He's like, counter song. DM's like, what? He's like, fucking counter song. It's an ability a bard has where I can counter sound-based effects, somebody talking, singing, whatever. It's like kind of command kind of stuff, and it's like the DM's like, yeah, actually that absolutely is the use of counter song. And so like it's an ability that almost never comes up, but man, when it does, it feels good. And there's a distinct lack of that from modern D&D design. Everything has to be a huge mechanical bonus. Unless you're a ranger, then you just get shat on, or a monk in a lot of cases. Like, monks still are filled with those dumb things that don't actually do anything, but they took them out of, like, the bard and the fighter and all that shit. But yeah, so, like, with these hundreds of archetypes, you just end up with 2 characters, one who's just better than the other at everything, because he happened to know the archetype that was in the fucking Player's Handbook 77, and this newer player didn't. So this newer player who wants to play this kind of cool fighter guy is just being outshined by this other guy who's just munchkined his character up. I shouldn't say that because munchkin's a very negative term. who just power gamed this character up, and I guess like not really even any kind of fault of his own, but like using the book. But like as a new player, why would you keep playing it just to feel like a background character in another player character's story? It feels bad. It's a very feel bad mechanic. So when you dump these kind of options on players, when you have I think the number in third edition was 153 core classes players can choose from, an additional 400 some, probably every bit of 400 some prestige classes. And you know, the guy who's been playing like me from jump, who's been slowly drip fed this new information, I'm going to have a lot more options and versatility and ability to kind of, you know, experiment with very, very crazy, powerful designs. And this new player comes in and they're just shittier than me in every way. Why would he keep playing? And it's... that has hurt. I know third edition was a huge explosion in the gaming community, but in a lot of ways it also hurt it, because once it exploded and that huge influx of new players came in, the game systems were very unwelcoming. Not even just to play. I mean, yeah, the players. 2000s were not a great time for Dungeons and Dragons culture. You can go back, Internet Archive, any these gaming forums in like 2003, 2004, and you can see how unwelcoming it is for people, just the culture. But that's a different story. That's a different tale for a different time. And I mean, just in those days, no one would be called out for talking about how unrealistic a battle wheelchair is. Like, oh yes, battle wheelchairs are unrealistic. Now, if you'll excuse me, this cat girl ninja and this elf wizard's gonna accompany my dwarven paladin to go kill that dragon and steal his magic sword. Like, but realism is very, very, very important to us here. Isn't that right, Birdman? Fucking ninja. Oh no, yeah, cat girl ninja. Fuck, we had two ninjas in this party. Why the fuck not? It's like, yes, yes, realism very important. Rock. Sorry, there's a cat doing something, and I don't know if I trust what she's doing. Anyway, so yeah, it became very unwelcoming to new players, and Pathfinder didn't want to do that. So instead what they did was they remarketed their extra classes as archetypes. And it was terrible. And really same with the races. Like, there was like 750 fucking races to pick from. And Pathfinder just kind of did the same thing. And like, I kind of get it in a way, because it's like, oh man, I really want to play a drow. Or not drow. I mean, people would want to play drows. Fuck drows. Drows are disgusting. I fucking hate drows so much. I fucking hate it. Damn fear was what I was thinking. Which, of course, you know, these loner vampires who are antisocial and don't interact with people, of course they get a charisma bonus, because fuck it, right? Like, charisma doesn't actually mean your charm, your personality, your natural, you know, magnetism toward people. Charisma is the stat that bards use. And sorcerers and warlocks. Oh, fuck it. You know, these stats don't actually mean anything. They're not actually meant to inform what your character's like. They're just numbers. Yeah, I know it's fucking thing back in 3rd edition. Doesn't mean anything. It was the thing back in 2nd edition. The books just preached about how your stats were meant to be role-playing challenges, which they're not. They just meant your character is shittier. But I already played that game. I already did that digression way earlier. I might come back to it at some point, because stats are something I have a lot to say about, because they are the center thing that inform your characters. Whatever. But they just have this massive pool of choices, and what's a new player to do? He can't play core. The core have been so power scaled. Imagine trying to play Yu-Gi-Oh using only stuff from the first 3 sets. You'll never. If you built a deck that looked like Yu-Gi-Moto's, you would never, ever, ever, ever be able to compete, even casually, because everything has been so power scaled up, and that's really the truth about 3.5 and Pathfinder, was that they had power scaled the game so bad that anyone new who just wanted to play core couldn't play core. It actually got to a point in Pathfinder first edition where if I was running it, I would be like, you can use what's in the core rulebook and you can use what's in the player advanced player's guide, and that's it. I'm not letting all this other stuff because it just was too much. It's too much. And yeah, I know, oh, you're limiting player choice. You fucking right, I'm limiting player choice. Like, this shit has gone insane, and maybe if somebody wanted to bring 1 feat from another book, I'd look at it and kind of consider, maybe, very unlikely, but maybe if you had an archetype you really, really wanted to play. One of the other problems with the archetypes was that it's so dampened creativity. So, in my friend's game, I was playing Drake Rose, world famous pirate, and he was a bard. Because the idea was, okay, I want him to be this charismatic, very charming, very, like, a bigger than life type character. So, okay, so character's got a high charisma. So, class that has a high charisma. And there were other classes that had high charisma. I'm like, but I want him to be able to hold his own in a fight, too. Because he's a pirate captain. He's going to fight sometimes. And I like the idea of him having access to magic. Because he was originally a red mage in a Final Fantasy campaign that we converted over. So I'm like, okay, red magic, bard magic, kind of the jack of all trades magic. Yeah, this is cool. I'd be a bard. And then it was this thing where one of my friends was like, well, since he's a pirate, he should be the pirate archetype. I'm like, but I don't want to be the pirate archetype. You give up magic for a bunch of... I'm like, but I don't want to give up my magic. I like my magic. It fits the character to have access to magic. And was like one of the things where, like, the idea was that he had been exposed as a baby to, like, the life stream, and it gave him just, like, a very natural inclination toward magic. So he wasn't good at it, he wasn't like a fucking wizard, but he just had this natural inclination towards some spellcasting, specifically a lot of deceptive spellcasting, like charms and illusions. But my friend was like, no, he's a pirate, so he should be the pirate subclass. And I remember, and it actually started to, like, get on my nerves, because my character, who, like I said, he was a bard, but he always introduced himself as a pirate. He's like, I'm a pirate. He's like, okay, bard, hey, bard. And I'm like, my character's not a fucking bard, he's a pirate. Yes, his class is bard, but he doesn't identify as a bard. He doesn't sing. His instrument was things like trash talking. He had the oratory perform, and the idea was he did his oratory was trash talking, taunting and things like that, as well as like big heroic speeches like, come then, today we stand on the ground, and we will not allow 1 inch to be that kind of stuff. But, like, it got old because he's like, because he got the point, I'm like, I'm not a fucking bard. I'm a pirate. This is what I am. I'm a pirate. Stop calling me a bard. Do you see a fucking lute in my hand? No. And then he'd be like, well, your character sheet says bard, because I didn't want to take the pirate archetype. And it very, very much kind of became like almost like a sticking point between us, because I was just like, stop calling my character a bard. Literally. Nothing in character my character has done makes him come off as a bard. You're only saying that because you're mad that I didn't do what you wanted me to do as a pirate and pick the pirate archetype. I had a game I was running online. My friend picked a barbarian, but he was a church barbarian. And he was like, the idea would be that he instead of like primal rage, he worked himself into a religious fervor. And it was the same thing where it's like, well, you're a barbarian, you're supposed to be like primal, and he's like, my friend was Josh on the channel was like, no, I am a religious, but because the barbarian, and I think there was a very similar like paladin archetype that used the rage that he wanted my friend to take, but he honestly just liked the idea of playing a barbarian who used a religious fervor. Game didn't last very long anyway, except it was a play-by-post game, and it just didn't work. It just didn't last very long. But I love that idea. That was such a cool fucking character design. Like, oh, I'm a barbarian, but I'm not like a primal barbarian. I'm closer to like a divine. But it doesn't matter because barbarians don't use like spell casting types. So, but yeah, it's like the idea. He didn't have like an animal totem or a primal totem. It was like instead of like a primal bear totem, he had like not. It wasn't, but like an equivalent to like a crucifix that he used as like his totemic focus, and that's such a cool design. And then when you create like these very strict archetypes and subtypes and subclasses, it can very very limit creativity because people will push you like, oh, if you want to play a pirate, here's these 3 pirate classes, like, but I don't like those pirate classes, they aren't doing what I want to do. Luckily, a lot of that culture seems to have died in 5th edition. I don't really see as much of that anymore. But yeah, that was one of the big things that stuck with me about, and how many fucking classes and I guess it's just mostly just become a rant about archetypes, because that's the only thing really Pathfinder did that mattered, was replace 150 classes with 375 archetypes. Other than that, it was just a 3rd edition game, D20 plus D20 plus base attack bonus plus stat modifier plus weapon enchantments plus feat enchantments to be AC of 10 plus armor plus dexterity plus shield plus natural armor plus enchantments. Oh, you roll a d20, you add your skill modifier, which, oh my god, I could go into fucking skills. Yeah, fuck it, I'll do a quick overview of skills. My brother built a bard in Pathfinder, 1st edition, had 2nd level, had like a plus 20 diplomacy. For those of you who play 5th edition, that would be persuasion. Dude had like a plus 20. And if I'm not mistaken, the book had something like a 45 to convince a king to give you as an impossible task. And my brother's like, hey, in 4 levels, there is literally mechanically a 1 in 20 chance that I will be able to convince a king to give me his kingdom. And I keep going 5% up every level because I'm gonna keep putting levels in diplomacy. And like skills got like, it's like, oh, DC 50, that's impossible. And people are like, I have like a plus, I have like a plus 42 to this skill check. I don't think a plus 50 is impossible. It's like, how'd you get a plus 42? You're only level 8. Well, I took this feat. I have max ranks in the skill. I have max skill stat thing, max charisma. I have this thing that gives me plus 4 charisma. I have this magic item that gives me plus 6 to any skill check I make. I took 5 ranks in this skill. That gives me a plus 2 bonus. This skill gives me a plus 2 bonus. This skill gives me a plus 2 bonus. And it got insane. It's actually why I really like 5th edition's proficiency bonus. I prefer Pathfinder 2nd edition's way they handle skills to 5th edition's, where it's just a proficiency bonus that goes up with level. I like the idea that you have like up to 4 different stages of like, okay, you're trained, you're an expert, you're a master, you're legendary at it. And it's like, okay, 4, it's like 4 or 2, 4, 6, 8, something like that. I don't think there's 5 ranks, but whatever. It could be. But yeah, where it's just kind of like this increment instead of just Um, a +2 until you're level 5, then it's a +3, things like that. But I do appreciate what 5th edition did with that, where they basically was like, no, you're not getting 45 in your diplomacy checks anymore, your persuasion checks anymore. It's just not happening. It's not gonna be a thing anymore. But anyway, I'm at an hour mark. I'll probably do a part 2 of this at some point down the road. Talk more about Pathfinder First Edition. Mostly when I have the book and I can show you the fucking awful artwork. Go look it up. It looks terrible. A lot of people probably like it. I think it looks like garbage. Yeah, like once we've moved into whatever the new house we're moving into, it's a big thing. But once we've moved and my books are out of boxes, I'll be able to like go through it a little bit more and things like that. Yeah, because all the books I'm not actively using. Like I have my Blue Rose book out because I'm actively trying to do a Blue Rose campaign at the moment. I have my D&D 5th edition book out because we don't have anyone playing 5th edition. I don't know anybody running 5th edition, but it's very, very likely that one of my friends might be like, hey, over Discord, maybe we'll do a 5th edition campaign. And I'll be, all right, cool. I actually have a guy I work with who wants to do, like, some of the people at work run a 5th edition campaign. I don't think I will. He doesn't seem like the kind of player that I'd vibe with very well. Very, very passionate about the game. Very, very knowledgeable about D&D 5th edition. So nothing against him. I just don't think our playstyles mesh. He seems very antagonistic. Very much like, I'm going to build this character to fuck my DM over. And I'm like, I don't really vibe with that type of player. But if his group likes it, hey man, that's the beauty is I don't have to play with every person. But I have my friend's 5.5 book because I've been kind of reading it. I haven't read as much lately. I've been working, kind of doing my own design work lately, focusing very hard on that. But anyway, like I said, I'm almost at an hour mark, but I will see you guys later, and I'll probably touch base on Pathfinder First Edition again some point in the future. But I will see you guys later. Bye.